Hello, this is Owen Geiger. This is July 2015. This is our forest garden update after about just a little over 2 years. Now, last year's update, we mostly took photos from a distance because the beds themselves were not built up and finished. But now we're to a higher level of completion, so it looks much better. There's much more plants. So today we want to look more closely at the garden. So follow me and I'll give you a tour of our forest garden here in Thailand. The main thing I've been doing this last year is raising the beds, adding soil amendment such as rice hulls, sugarcane, compost, manure, whatever we can get just to keep building the soil, because we can't get good topsoil. We can only get certain different things like leaves and chopped coconut husks, things like this. So we just get whatever we can get and just keep piling it on, dump truck after dump truck. So far 25 to 30 dump truck loads. So it just keeps getting better and better. It still has a way to go, but it's definitely getting better. So let's take a look at some of these plants. This is a native Thai plant. It's tastes much like asparagus. You just pick off the little soft tops. It's very delicious. You can cook or just eat raw. I graze on these every day when I'm working in the garden. They're pretty good. We have the whole bed here, so there's enough for a restaurant. Okay, let's look over here. Another thing you'll see we've done this year, we've added a lot of these concrete pipe planters. Now they don't look the greatest, but believe me, the production is just unbelievable. It's been phenomenal, because this gives the plant exactly what it wants. You put the same plant in crappy clay soil, and no matter how many amendments you try to add, it's not the same, because the clay soil does not drain correctly. See, this allows for proper drainage, perfect soil mix. Everything is ideal. So these here are dragon fruit. We have white here and red here, and this is just a concrete pipe that they climb up, and then you allow them to spread out on top, like on a trellis that we'll add later. And over here you'll see we have some lime trees. We bought 10 lime trees from a farmer who specializes in lime trees. And again, the production, you just have to see it to believe it. A huge tree, maybe this wide, that's been propped up with bamboo, and the height maybe up like this, with maybe a bushel basket on every tree. And that production is after only 10 months. So this is just a new start. It already has limes on it. Can you imagine in 10 months with a bushel basket of limes? We have 10 of those just around the homestead here. Also, we bought 5 fig trees on order, and we've put those throughout the garden where there was just like an opening, maybe a tree died, or there's just a space there we wanted to utilize just to boost production. So the idea is we want to maximize production. So far we've been busy raising the beds, adding layers of soil amendment and planting the trees and the big plants like bananas, these herbs, mini papaya. I want to go show you. That's been a huge success story of this past few months. I'll go show you those now. Okay, about 4 months ago I looked in our compost bin and I found some little starts, little papaya starts. I thought, wow, that's great. And I just kind of left them. They got bigger and bigger, and I thought, well, maybe I should plant these things. There's a lot. There were like 100, 200 just sprouting like crazy. Just effortlessly, they just grew in the compost. So I just started putting them throughout the garden. So in about the last 4 months, they've grown this big. Some are way bigger. Look back here. I mean, that's like 8 feet tall right here. See? And they're already setting fruit and flowering. And so this whole area here has just been taken over in papaya. So again, we're trying to improve production. Instead of a tree here and a tree here, like in an orchard, this is like intensive gardening, where you get the most out of the space. Because we don't have a whole lot here. It's a fairly small garden, so we want to make the most of it. And a key aspect of that is the sun is just brutal. The heat here is brutal. Can you imagine a 6-7 month dry season plus the drought? We've had like a 15-year record drought this past month. So everything you see is in spite of a drought and just coming through a long dry season. So to me, things are looking pretty good. Now we've had to irrigate, of course, but we're just getting things established. And as the forest garden matures, the roots go deeper. You add more and more plants that they help each other. They're beneficial, and the soil gets better and better. The earthworms multiply, and over time you have to water just less and less. So what happens is you need all these plants to shade the other plants. See, most people just put a tree here, a tree there. Okay, it would just be baked by the sun. The trees that are over out in the open, they're struggling. But the same trees over here, for the most part, are bigger and just happier. See? So I believe they're going to grow faster, and, well, they already are, but ultimately get bigger and more productive. Okay, there's something else I want to show you over here. This is a little area behind our house. It's just neglected, nobody does anything, and it's turning out to be one of the most productive areas. So why is that? Well, it's like I was just saying, if you have lots of plants close together, they shade each other, they keep the soil cool, the sun isn't drying out the soil, so that means the soil microorganisms can flourish. All the worms and insects and beneficial microorganisms can all work together to build soil so the plants grow faster. Now just look at this. This is our biggest, best mango tree that's received almost no care. If you look carefully, look closely, you'll see just abundant growth. And so this is like maybe double, triple the other mango trees in our forest garden. So it's just compacted close together. Some would say it's too close, but look, here's the proof. We also had our biggest, most productive papaya tree. It's taken a break because of the drought, but you can see it's starting to set fruit again. So we've got lots of fruit from that. Here's a banana plant. We just harvested bananas yesterday. You can see where we cut the bananas off. And here's another mango tree with, it's first crop. It's not the greatest. The insects are hitting this one, but still, it's producing mangoes, and it's pretty big. It's maybe the second biggest mango tree in the whole forest garden. So again, this area gets almost nothing because it's kind of out of the way. There's this junk pile of scrap wood and things. But what that does is it helps protect the soil, keeps the soil cool. So that's the main lesson is it's okay to put plants close together. You can always thin things out later if you want. So that helps the young trees get started. One question we ask ourselves is, what plants are the easiest to grow and the most productive? And I found a good video on YouTube by John Goller, gardening expert. He interviewed this farmer from Hawaii who specializes in fruit trees, and he gave his opinion. He said fastest growing, most productive, and easiest to grow papaya, bananas, dragon fruit. So it's the plants that we want to grow. Fig trees, that's why we bought 5 fig trees. See, we want production. We don't want to wait 20 years. We have 2 tamarind trees, but I may never live to see them, produce. We may never see the coconuts. They take a long time. So we want things that we can see and reap immediate or quick rewards. Okay, here's another important step I just finished in the garden. Last year, much of our topsoil washed away in the heavy rains. So this year I was determined to create a system that would reduce the erosion. It's just too much work to throw all those truckloads of soil on the garden and then just have it wash away. So what I did, we got 1,500 vetiver starts. And I talked about vetiver on our blog, Natural Building blog, the other day. So you can look up that article, and that's what this is. These tall green shoots. It's a miracle plant. Just like this many benefits. Just read that blog post. They bring up nutrients from like 3 to 5 meters below the surface. So they'll go down into the rice field underneath this. They'll bring up nutrients up to the surface, store them in their leaves. You cut the grass off about this high and throw that green manure mulch on top of your trees and plants. And that will fertilize the soil. And each little start, you can barely see them. It's just like one little shoot. Each little start will create a bunch, a clump of grass about this big in diameter. So this will just be like a whole, almost a fence that's going to help retain the soil. And then if you look closely, you'll see we put straw behind it. So the straw is like a filter that traps sediment that wants to come washing off the garden. The straw also acts as a sponge to help keep the vetiver wet. Vetiver likes moisture. It's used around the world to reduce erosion in flood-prone areas. So around every bed, I planted these vetiver starts about this far apart, maybe 10 inches apart, depending on how steep the slope is. And then behind it, I've added different kinds of beans and peanuts to help anchor the soil and build the soil and just kind of hold everything in place. Also create some shade. And eventually most of these will just be chopped to build the soil. We'll save some. The peanuts will stay though. The peanuts will stay as part of a permanent crop, permanent soil building crop. Because again, the soil needs a lot of work here. You can't just go out and buy good topsoil. You have to build it up in layers. It takes a few years to get things going. So I was real happy to get this done and see the vetiver taking off like this. This hibiscus grows like a weed. Just volunteer, year after year, it just pops back up. This is a key ingredient in that red zinger tea a lot of people are familiar with. Super easy to grow, high in antioxidants and vitamin C. It's pretty tasty. And again, it's just effortless. It just grows like a weed. Over there's a whole bunch, it's like dozens of plants. See? If you leave some of the red fruit just on the plant, they'll dry, the seeds will drop, and it'll just spread everywhere. So we just kind of let them grow wherever. Again, we're trying to keep a big variety in the garden. You want a key step that we didn't do correctly last year. We didn't keep roots in the ground all year round. I went to Australia and Vanuatu and the Philippines and all this, and while I was gone, the garden got neglected and the soil became hard again. So you can't let that happen. You have to keep plants on all the beds. Cover every square foot if possible. Just keep something growing, even if it's clover, peanuts, beans, something. Keep the roots in the ground so that the microorganisms in the soil can stay alive and active. That's how you're going to build the soil. It takes more than just throwing amendments on top. You need those microorganisms to actually mix everything and break everything down. Okay, let's take a look around. I mentioned highly productive, easy to grow plants like bananas and papaya, fig trees, dragon fruit. Well, another one is the guava. Really easy to grow. We're getting pretty good production from that. This is just the second year and already we're getting quite a few. Another one is sugar apples. They're highly productive. Let's go look at some sugar apples. Here's our biggest sugar apple tree. You can see it's probably about 12 feet tall, maybe even bigger. Again, they just kind of grow like weeds. Here's another amazing plant, Marion plum. This is probably our best one. Now the ones over in the full sun, they get baked. It's just too intense. This one was actually almost 100% buried under passion fruit vines. You can see the passion fruit right here. These things are just almost a nuisance plant. But we have some. Anyway, this tree just got buried and almost forgotten. It's just so much growth. So the other day I pulled back the passion fruit vines, exposed it, and look, it's doing fine. It's actually the biggest, luscious one, and it has this nice orange fruit. Looks like a big apricot, but it's a Marion plum. Here's another big papaya. It's one of my favorite fruits now. I eat almost every day. Really delicious. And there's one even taller right here. Just swing the camera around there. Look at that. Look at all those fruits that are setting. See, so it takes a while to get them started. Once they get going, you can zoom in here and see here's two green papaya. And they'll produce for 3 or 4 years. They'll just keep going and going. We're adding more flowers to attract the pollinators, and the bees and everything will boost production. This is the front of our homestead along the road here, and the main thing we did here was to plant like a privacy fence of flowers and passion fruit to block the view and mostly block the dust, keep the dust from blowing into the garden. So it's coming along nicely. And again, we should have a lot of passion fruit pretty soon. We just cook down the fruit and add a little sugar. Otherwise they're very, very sour and they don't taste so good to me. This is a real productive papaya. It actually got blown over in a windstorm at the beginning of the rainy season. So that's another thing we've had to deal with. We lost like 10 banana plants that blew over, and this was over at a pretty steep angle. We propped it up for a while and then it just kind of corrected itself. So it's, we've already picked a number of the papayas from here. And right behind it there, you can see pomegranate. It's growing nicely. We have lots of sweet potatoes. They just grow almost like a weed. And I was mentioning we want to increase production. We may have these eventually grow in the pathways. Okay, here's a close-up view of one of our banana plants. You can see the mound of compost, everything that we've added. For instance, we'll put manure underneath and then smother the weed seeds that come up by putting another type of compost on top. Here we have decomposed sawdust and wood shavings and leaves. Again, we just get whatever we can. And the bananas love this. They love all this mulch around the base of the plants. If I had to pick a plant, I'd say the bananas are my favorite. They're so easy to grow and just unbelievably productive. In fact, let's go look at some bananas over here. Yeah, I was saying how the bananas are probably my favorite because they're just so easy to grow and so productive. Now this big bunch of bananas here, this whole cluster of plants, is about 1.5 meters in diameter. It all started with one little plant like this. Okay? And a tree hole that we dug about 30 inches in diameter, that we dug down to the rice field, filled with good soil, and it's just producing, you know, one bunch of bananas after another. In fact, you can see where the old ones, once they produce, we cut them down, and then we cut them up in pieces. I don't know, maybe 36 inches long, like logs. But again, they're soft and they easily rot. We put those around the bananas to kind of like prevent the compost from washing away, kind of help hold the moisture also. And one banana plant just keeps growing after another. Now, keep in mind that these have been thinned out, and we've transplanted some of these already. And some blew over in the windstorm. So actually, it's more productive than you can see. But still, this is a real good successful bunch of bananas here. Banana plants. Now you can come up here and look. There's just bananas everywhere. There's bananas there. I'll swing the camera around. You can see this big papaya. Here's another big one right here. We have bananas there. Bananas on the right. Another good bunch of bananas over here. You can step over here. It's a little hard to see, but it's one of the good sized bunch right there. Kind of zoom in maybe. You can see that particular banana plant fell over. Another highly productive and easy to grow plant are pineapples. We've been eating pineapples here quite often here, and they're slow. They take like 2 years to get started, but once they're established, you know, they really take off. They're quite productive. So this plant has two. You can see one on the left, one on the right. Now swing the camera around. You can see what you do is you twist off the top and just replant it, and you can get them in the market too. So one thing I'm doing right now is planting lots of extra pineapple. See, you just through experience, through trial and error, you find out what works best, what you like the best, and whatever works, you just plant more. Now, right here by your left foot, there's a real good plant, holy basil, right here. This is a good medicinal herb. I nibble on this every day. Real tasty. You can make tea or just eat fresh like I do. A lot of health benefits. Another super good plant is galangal. This here, I thought my girlfriend planted too many. They're just all over the garden, but this turned out to be, you know, a huge success. Again, what it does, it's almost indestructible. It's super productive. From a tiny cluster, it produces these big clusters that shade the little plants. See, without these shade plants, the other plants would just get baked by the sun. It's just brutal out here. So today is overcast. We had rain 2 or 3 days ago, so today is not too bad. But in the middle of the day, I just go home. It's just way too hot. I showed you this black pepper from a previous video. It's doing pretty good. You can see the light green growth. These are all the new leaves coming on. So it's doubled. Again, it's not super productive. It's struggling from the drought and the long dry season, but it's coming along. You know, it's real happy with it. So you start with the big plants that shade the smaller plants. You just work down. So right now we're starting to fill in the smaller plants. Here's a ginger. We've added lots of peanuts. Eventually we're going to cover all the empty areas. Not this, because this is a raised bed. But we're going to put peanuts in all the areas of bare soil underneath papayas to try to improve the soil. Okay. So we're gradually adding herbs. Here's one here. You can see mint, different kinds of basil. Here we have onions. I think these are red onions. You have to zoom in on this. They're small, but I love onions. One thing that didn't work out so great are the mulberry trees. You might remember from last year's video, we planted about 110 mulberries where we cut the tops off, you know, depending. You cut the top off and then cut into sections like this and then just stick them in the ground. Well, they started to grow leaves, but then in the rainy season last year, they got overwhelmed by this incredible dense growth. It's like a jungle around the edges. So they got overtaken. Then the guy we paid to cut back the weeds and all this bamboo vegetation, which spills onto our property here. It's awful. Basically, those little mulberry plants got killed and neglected. So we have maybe, I don't know, 12, maybe 15 mulberry trees left, which is unfortunate. We could have had 100 all around the perimeter, but see, these get blocked by the bamboo. There's no stopping that bamboo. It's just towering, you know, it's like a 2 or 3 story building. And then the windstorm, a lot of that old dead bamboo fell onto our property, and it was all the way over to here, hitting this coconut plant. This coconut's doing nicely, by the way. Over here we have a taro. You can make a dessert with this, or just eat it like a potato. They make purple ice cream in Thailand. It's pretty good. So just lots of variety. Another favorite fruit is jackfruit. That's this tree here. They have shiny green leaves. They're real hardy. This survived, you know, the drought, the being in the shade of all this bamboo. It's growing nicely. The jackfruit in town, at our house in town, we got jackfruit about this big around, about that big around diameter, probably maybe a dozen on one little tree. And that was after the power company cut half the tree off. It was growing up in the power lines and they had to cut off like half the tree. So just imagine how many how many jackfruits we could have had. But anyway, again, super productive, easy to grow, real hardy, and super tasty. Super delicious. It takes a little bit of time, practice to know when to harvest and how to harvest. But if you get it just right, it's like, the fruit is like candy. Just super sweet and delicious. Here's an interesting banana over here. I don't know if you can see. see the diameter of this. It's probably 14 inches in diameter, and then you can see the bananas hanging here. Now the problem with this is, here's another bunch right here. Now the problem with this is, it grows, it puts a lot of energy into the trunk. And so this is probably not the best, most productive kind. Where this has not produced any edible bananas yet, where the others have produced over and over now. But anyway, it's an interesting plant. You can see the big, beautiful leaves. It's real stocky and strong. Again, it takes very little effort. Almost never water. That's another key thing about the bananas. Once they're established, they have a way of storing up the water and just going and going. In fact, it's easy to overwater where you can hurt them. And now, depending on the slope of the edge of the raised bed, sometimes I've added wood poles, or in this case bamboo. This bamboo is some that fell off from our neighbor's bamboo, and I've added it to like a check dam to help hold back the water and soil. And in some places I've added like two. I've added one here and then one up the slope. Now this isn't so bad here, but again, you just do what you have to do to keep the soil on the garden. You don't want it to just wash away, which it will. When it rains here, it can just pour like you wouldn't believe, as if the skies just opened. The most intense downfall, where like in an hour, the ditches along the highway can be halfway full of water. You just have to see it to believe it. I almost got blown off the highway. You know, it comes in, it just knocks things over, and it's just, the water comes down these ditches. See, you need a way to get rid of excess water, or the whole thing would just be underwater. So we have these ditches. It goes slowly off the property, but not too fast. See, here at the end I keep leaves and soil so it just doesn't go rushing away. It will drain off slowly. It's not a steep slope at all. Okay. Okay, you can see around the edges I'm adding pineapple. I want to add about 80 more. Try to get different varieties. See, that's what's fun. You can just try different varieties. There's some that are low in acid, some that are sweeter, some that are bigger. There's even these little miniature pineapples that are super sweet. Here's a full-grown pineapple that we harvested about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was telling you I started planting herbs, but it's a little too early. It's still too hot because of the drought. So I'm going to hold off on the herbs. I did plant some down here. I can show you. I told you about the holy basil. So more ginger in there. Here's some mint. This is real good. Popular in Thai dishes. Here's mint down here. Now this kind of mint we're using in the planters with the lime trees. So you just take little sprigs and you stick in the soil, so it'll be like a ground cover around those lime trees. Here's some more herbs over here. Just a little corner. So basically I'm just plugging in plants wherever there's like a little open space. Here we have spinach back here. Again, it's fun to nibble on things. Okay, here's a good success story. We were looking for ways to boost production, trying to double production of our forest garden. So I was looking on the internet and I found something called a banana circle. So that caught my attention. It's a permaculture gardening technique. So we had this area that really wasn't being fully utilized. We would stockpile rice hulls, things like this here, but it wasn't being, fully utilized, like I said. So what you do, you take, every garden needs some kind of brush pile, compost pile. You have dead branches and weeds and trimmings and all this. So we dug a hole about 1.5 meters in diameter down to the rice field, so about this deep. We got a truckload. Same day I was doing this, but the next day someone dumped a whole truckload of banana plants along the road. So he just picked them up, we brought them here and chopped them up in pieces, just threw them, and since then we just keep piling on trimmings, dead leaves, just whatever from the garden, just garden waste. So you got all this compost breaking down in the center, this banana circle, and you put the plants around it on a berm. So if you look carefully, you can see there's a berm maybe 16, 18 inches high that goes all the way around this compost pile. And what I did is I used loose topsoil, fairly fertile topsoil, and I mixed in different kinds of compost, manure, everything, the best I could get. And then we put in different plantings. Now, we couldn't put in a lot of bananas because as you saw over here, the bananas just spread, and this whole thing would be one giant just clump of bananas. They would take over the compost pile, everything. So we just have one on the other side. So instead we planted papayas. So we have 4 big ones right here, actually on the berm. We use the same vetiver and beans around the edge to hold the soil, with some straw as mulch. Mulch is real important. And now we're plugging in different plants like potatoes. You can see the peanuts under here, they're taking off. We added lemongrass right here. This is super healthy, makes delicious tea, by the way, but mostly it's used in Thai cooking. And then sugar cane. This was fun. Somebody out here, I think it was my girlfriend, just chopped off a piece of sugar cane, and the top was just left on the ground. It was going to die. So I just came over here, and I didn't do anything. I just stuck it in the ground and watered it, and now it's growing. It's probably doubled in size already. So we'll have some nice sugar cane here eventually, and you can see the banana through there. It's just getting started. So the plants have everything they need, and they're just growing like weeds. Again, these are just like 4 months old. And these have been out in full sun through the dry season, through the drought. And they have everything they need. They have drainage up on the berm. Their roots can access the compost pile. They have the beans around the perimeter that are building the soil. So these are going to be some very, very productive plants, I believe. Up here you can see our carport. This is like a staging area, for lack of a better word. We're growing peanut starts because the ants are eating maybe 3/4 of them. So I've planted who knows how many, 1,000 or 2,000 peanuts in there. Most of them got destroyed by the ants. So I started, this is just an experiment. It's working out nicely, so I'll do more. And I want to put these peanuts around every tree, around the bananas, around the papaya, everything. Provide extra nutrients, build the soil, shade the soil, again, build up the microorganisms in the soil. And you can see we get, here's another truckload of compost from the other day. This is just a mounded pickup truckload of sugarcane compost. It's aged, and the plants really love it. It's black, rich, and super cheap, ridiculously cheap. This whole mounded truckload was $15. So again, this is, I told you we used over 25 truckloads. This would be an example of the kind of soil amendment that we're adding. Okay, from previous videos on my homestead channel, you can see that we had a shade structure here. We wanted to create a nursery and worm farm, all this under here. Turns out we were never using it, and we could benefit more, boost production by creating a vegetable bed. So we left this one concrete post because they had this beautiful flowering plant here, well established, so we just left this one. It's not flowering now, but it's super prolific. I'll show you our newest project here. This is our vegetable bed. This is brand new, like maybe 3 weeks old. And yesterday morning we pulled out a large quantity of green vegetables. You can see there's pumpkin, spinach, 2 kinds of spinach, lots of peanuts all around the edge to help build the soil, slow erosion. Also lots of straw. If you look all around, we have straw everywhere to help hold the soil, protect the soil. We have a lot of peanuts planted to build the soil. The goal on this first crop is not to produce a lot of food. It's to build the soil primarily, because it's just getting started. Again, it's just layers. Layers of sugarcane compost, rice hulls, compost, straw, just whatever we can get. So the soil is not the greatest. In fact, it's not really even what you'd call soil yet. It's just layers of different amendments. We have only a few stalks of corn. And you can see in the back we've added some bamboo trellising for the beans. The beans are really taking off. This kind gets really big here. Big pods this big, big seeds, about the size of a lima bean. You can see, look, just in one day, this twisted around and climbed the pole. Right there, all that in just one day. Pretty amazing. So we need to get something for these others also. And then again, there's bare spaces in here. Again, add more peanuts. So that's on the list of things to do. So not bad for the first crop here. Here's another success story. We have 2 neem trees side by side here. There's this one here is bigger, but they're just thriving. Even though they received almost no attention, almost never watered them. Again, that's through the long dry season, and then when they're expecting the rainy season to start, they get a month of drought on top of that. And yet, look, you can't even tell. You look, there's lots of growth, new growth. It's just, you want plants like this that are just naturally hardy, that can survive. Because you can't pamper every plant in a garden this big. Now here, let's look at these mulberries here. Okay, now you can see they're struggling. The leaves are turning brown. This one here looks like the grasshoppers ate most of them. What I've been waiting for, the rains to start, and then you top it off right here, see? You cut them off right here. If and when the rains start, we had one the other day, but that's just one little rain. When the rains start, you cut off sections, maybe 10 inches long. We want to plant more mulberries along here. And then these will just keep regrowing and regrowing more and more shoots every year. Here's another real productive papaya plant. Fairly young, but really taking off. And then around the base here you can see we've added the bamboo, the beans. You can see the soil is backed up against the bamboo so it doesn't wash away. And the vetiver is shooting up pretty good here. It's drought tolerant, but you also have to make sure it gets established, because it has to go through all that heavy clay soil. And without the rainy season, see, this drought, I don't know if it's going to make it through the clay, so we'll just see what happens. Here's moringa. It just does not like our soil here. See, look, it's just barely alive. There's two over there almost dead. There's the ones up by the road are half dead, insect eaten. Now this is one of the better ones in the shade. See, it likes the shade. You can see this is supposed to be the healthiest plant in the world, moringa. It's not real tasty to me. It tastes like medicine, but it's just absolutely full of all kinds of minerals. So again, it's one of those things I nibble on in the garden. You can zoom in on the leaves. It's supposed to be real easy to grow and drought tolerant, but it doesn't like our soil. Just too much heavy clay. On the internet it says it prefers well-drained soil, and obviously this clay soil is definitely not well-drained. Here's some more vetiver here. This is from a dead eggplant. Here's that sugar apple I showed in the video last year. So you can see, it's grown quite a bit, despite the drought and the long dry season. So it's struggling. You can see the fruits are dying. So this is how they're supposed to look, like that. But we have a problem with insect pests. When the plants are struggling with poor soil and drought, then they're more prone to insect infestation. And here you can see the bees swarming on the galangal flowers. That's another benefit of this galangal. Super delicious spice for Thai cooking. And you can't see, but under this, well, maybe you can. You can see the aloe vera plants. Somebody gave us a free aloe vera plant. I just dug one up like 2 days ago. So now I'm adding more aloe vera around the garden. Again, just create diversity. Here's a big aloe vera I bought. Right here. It's super healthy. And it's one of the best plants if you ever get like a burn. You can just cut it open, cut off one piece and rub it directly on your burn. Now this mint is really doing good here. See? It's just hard to understand. Some places do good, some places don't. And here's that other mint. This is doing better here. That's why it's good to plant things in different places. Sometimes it'll die, sometimes it'll just take off. It's just hard to figure. Okay, well that pretty well concludes our forest garden tour of the main highlights I wanted to show you. But I had two key points I wanted to briefly talk about. One is forest gardens as a hedge against drought. I wrote a blog post about this on our natural building blog the other day. Across from the road and actually all around, the rice fields are just, abandoned brown fields of weeds that looks like no crop this year. So many thousands of people are going to get no rice crop this year. So that's just an example. But then look at this garden. So in the midst of a drought, a record 15-year drought, look at the productivity that we're getting in a new forest garden. This is new, little over 2 years old, in poor soil. We planted into heavy clay subsoil because that's all we could get. So the point is, monocropping is a crapshoot. Okay, you're adding soil fertilizer, artificial fertilizers, chemicals, in the hopes of getting a crop. They get one crop a year. They only make about $125 per acre for the rice crop. And of course a forest garden can be much more profitable. Okay, so those are the two topics. Profitability, so it's much more profitable than say monocropping. This is producing year-round, not just one crop per year. Okay, so you can be harvesting food year-round. Enough for, I said in one video, enough for our family, free food forever. No. It's enough for a whole restaurant. That's the way things are coming together as I think harder and harder about how to boost production. There's a whole berm we haven't even talked about. There's a whole berm over here that I'm building up that will be another huge garden bed. See? So this has a lot of potential as a hedge against drought. See, what happens if you lose your main crop? Those rice farmers are going to suffer. The local economy is suffering. So that's one of the main incomes around here. So it's pretty sad. But yet this place is thriving. So it's a hedge against drought, and it's very profitable. There's a good video on YouTube I mentioned on our blog where it was a video in India, forest farm in India, where they itemized exactly all the plants all the plants are growing, per square meter basically. They give you a whole list and how much they're producing, and basically they're almost getting rich. And so my goal is maybe next year, maybe 2 years, use what I've learned here and then make a larger demonstration garden, a demonstration forest garden. This is not the best demonstration garden. We use all this heavy clay soil. The trees are struggling. Plants can grow twice as fast. As good as this is, the plants can grow twice as big, twice as fast if you give it good soil. So my plan that I'll post about on our blog here shortly, how to make all of this more efficient. So double production, you get fruit trees, not from the market. See, we just went to the market and just got whatever, $1 trees or whatever. So it's a crapshoot. You don't know what you're getting. But next time, I recommend, and what we plan to do is go to the best fruit farms. Find the farms that produce the best mangoes, the farm that produces the best bananas, whatever, and get the best plants right from the start. Okay, use the best soil right from the start. So I plan to make hugelkultur mounds with logs underneath that are inoculated with fungi, beneficial fungi, mound the soil, and then have it where the trucks can drive. See, instead of a little narrow pathway and moving everything by hand on wheelbarrows, want to have it where the trucks can drive in, and you can just, the workers can just throw the compost, the rice hulls, leaves, whatever, directly onto the garden beds. See, so, and also have an area where you can, huge piles of compost you can make. So that's my dream. That's maybe next year or two I want to do that. So double production, use better trees, use the most productive kinds, use the best soil, encourage the best. There's all kinds of techniques that I haven't even done yet, like making my own compost. We just throw it into a container. It's real haphazard. We have the compost pile over here, but I plan to buy a composting book here shortly when I get back from Nepal, and start making our own compost and take all this to the next level. See, it still has a long ways to go. You can just see, but it's fun. It's just like, it's dynamic. Everything is constantly changing. From one rainfall, I could see rapid growth, just like the beans. Just in one day, the tendrils went up those bamboo stakes. So it's getting kind of long here, so I'll just wrap this up. Thank you for watching, and check our natural building blog, where I will add more details about all of this. So thank you.